It's Thanksgiving week, and that means the football playoffs are in full swing, and there's much to discuss before everyone gathers around the dinner table this week. I'm Clint Buckley, and I'm joined by Chandler Vessels as always. Happy Thanksgiving, buddy.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, too. I know you're going to the Cowboys game on Thursday, so I know that'll be fun for you. Just hope you have a good time, and hope everyone else does, too.
So you're headed back home to Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go see my family, just kind of a low-key Thanksgiving. I don't think there's going to be that many people there, just really my parents and my sister and me, but excited to go back. I haven't been back to Oklahoma in like a couple months maybe, so excited to get back there.
Yeah, well, it ought to be fun. Like you said, I am going to the Cowboy game. My dad's birthday is actually on the 23rd, which is Thanksgiving, and he's a huge Cowboys fan, and he picked just a terrible year to go all out on tickets, especially after Sunday night's performance. But hopefully they'll play a little bit better. And I mean, it's his birthday. Come on, you gotta do a solid for my dad on his birthday.
Cowboys gotta win. They
gotta win on Thanksgiving. That's like a rite of passage. They don't lose on Thanksgiving, especially not with my family in the house. So, well, once all the fun is over on Thursday, it's back to business. And that's the second round of the high school football playoffs. But before we dive into this week's action, I kind of want to reflect a little bit on the first round. And I guess we'll start with my top three most impressive performances of last week, the bi-district round of the playoffs. And number one is Rusk. Just dominated a really good Pittsburgh team, 48-7. Their quarterback, Darian McDuff, has had a really good year. And when he came to play last week, he was 12 of 13 passing for 226 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Also added a couple of touchdowns on the ground. Big win, like I said, over Pittsburgh, 48-7. They got a tough one against Melissa this week. Melissa's very good. They're 10-1. I saw them last year in the playoffs against Gilmer. I knew they would be good this year because they were really young, and all those young players are experienced now and they're playing well. It's going to be tough for Rusk, but Rusk has been one of those surprise teams this year. Not much was expected of them coming into the year, and man, they have really impressed. They're 9-2 on the season, and they're playing the best football that they have all year long. So that was impressive. I was really impressed with Rusk. Number two, Lufkin. Lufkin holds down Rockwall Heath's power run game to just 67 yards rushing.
Wow.
And that's all Rockwall Heath does is run the ball. And if you hold a team like that to 67 yards, good things are going to happen typically, and that's what happened for Lufkin last week. They win 28-7. They're on a roll right now. They lost the season opener to Longview, but ever since then they've been kind of rolling. The only hiccup was a loss to the Woodlands, defending state finalist, which subsequently was upset in the first round of the playoffs by Rockwall last week. But Lufkin's playing really good football right now. Their defense has been lights out. Like I said, they hold Rockwall Heath to 7 points in that 28-7 win. They're going up against a Richardson Pierce team this week. They're 6-5. Lufkin's going in as a favorite this week again. That's going to be Saturday in Corsicana. It's a game that you'll be at 2 o'clock, I believe, on Saturdays to kick off. So it'll be your first look at Lufkin, and they've got some really good playmakers, and I'm excited to see what you think about them. I mean, their quarterback has come a long way, Kawan Thomas, since the beginning of the season. Of course, they've got some dynamic playmakers at receiver with Malik Jackson, Braylon Garcia, and Jalen Polk. And like I said, their defense is playing really well. So Rusk, Lufkin, very impressive, and also very impressive Longview. They exercised last year's playoff demons a little bit with a 42-21 win over Beaumont Westbrook, a team that eliminated them from the playoffs last year. I think the game was only 7-0 or something like that at halftime. They just erupted in the second half, scored 35 points. They play a Dallas Jesuit team this week. They're 7-4, but don't let that fool you. They started off 0-4, and they play some really good teams. They played Lake Travis. They played DeSoto, some really heavy hitters in Class 6A. And Jesuit scores points. They scored 79 last week in a 79-55 win over Garland Lakeview Centennial. They put up almost 800 yards of total offense. They didn't play much defense, which makes me think Longview will be able to move the football, but Longview might want to avoid a shootout this week against Jesuit because it seems like they've got the playmakers. More on that game in a little bit, but those are my three most impressive performances in my eyes. Rusk, Lufkin, and Longview. They really came to play in the first round. Chandler, what were your initial thoughts from the first round?
Well, I'm gonna go my top three performances. First, I'm gonna go Newton. That was a game I was there to see in person. They shut out ARP 58-0. Very impressive. I believe at halftime, ARP had still not gained any yards.
Wow.
They were still at a negative net total. So their defense was just great. 5 fumbles in that game. And then Tamazier Brown also had an interception. So they forced 6 turnovers in that game against ARP. And Tamazier Brown pretty much locked down DeMarvion Overshone, who's been one of the best players in East Texas this season. So.
Yeah, that game was kind of billed as a head-to-head against those two players, two of the best, most talented players in our area. And I think it's safe to say Tamazier won that battle. But who knows? They could be future rivals in college. Tamazier's got offers now from Oklahoma State and Baylor, and of course Overshone is headed to Texas. He's committed there, so they could be future Big 12 rivals, and we might see this matchup again later on down the road. But that one definitely belongs to Tamazier. So yeah, Newton, impressive last week.
Yeah. I wanted to get this stat in real quick because I saw it on Twitter, and it's just astounding. Newton has not allowed a point since October 13th. And in their past 5 games, they've outscored their opponents 290-0.
Jeez.
So, good luck if you're facing Newton at any point in these playoffs.
Yeah.
But my next big performer was Hughes Springs. They also got a shutout against Mineola, the defending state champion. They allowed only 170 yards in that game, I believe, and that's pretty good because Shaw Franklin, that Mineola quarterback, has been a pretty good player, especially in the last half of the season. He's really come on, but they really had a hold on him and really their whole offense. Their running back, Tredarian Carter, had 151 yards and a touchdown. So they'll run into a 10-1 Grandview team.
The Zebras.
Yeah. What a unique nickname. There's a lot of those in Texas, I found.
I don't know if you've seen their inflatable that they run out of.
No.
It's the awesomest thing I've ever seen. It looks like it belongs in Game of Thrones. It's this zebra, and I want to say it like breathes fire. It's like a fire breathing zebra that they run out of onto the field. So I mean that's step one right there is intimidation. I mean if I'm playing Grandview, I don't want to see players running out of that thing.
That's reason enough to go watch them play, just to see that fire-breathing zebra. But
yeah,
that'll be at 2:30 on Friday in Mesquite. So I imagine that one will be a little bit closer. Grandview's a little bit better team, but my final big performer was Jefferson. Dominated Farmersville, who, by the way, 7-3. They're not a bad team, but Jefferson ends up beating them 69-30. Just a great offensive performance for the Bulldogs.
And one that I think they kind of needed because, a couple weeks ago they lose to White Oak. They kind of lost some of their mojo. They'd come in rolling in that game, and, that's, I think it was week 10, second to last week of the regular season. They lose that game, and they're thinking, okay, well, maybe Jefferson's not quite as good as we thought, but they proved that wrong last week. Yeah,
they were definitely perhaps playing angry after that loss, but White Oak, by the way, knocked out in the first round, so they won't have to worry about them anymore, but... usually it's Trey Hodge, TQ Jackson getting it done for the Bulldogs on offense, but Tybo Williams had a monster game in this one.
Yes, he did.
We're going to have more on him later, but I think it's a really good sign for Jefferson going forward in the playoffs, and like you said, a performance they really needed.
Yep. So those are kind of the look at the standout performances that we saw from this past week. Looking for more of the same this week. I think there's an opportunity for East Texas to make kind of a statement this week. And with that being said, we'll kind of move on to this week's games and highlight kind of the 3 most intriguing games, at least in our eyes. And we'll start off with Longview against Dallas Jesuit. I mentioned at the top, Jesuit, their offense is rolling. They average, close to 50 points per game, well over 500 yards per game. Their quarterback, Parker Towns, he's thrown for over 3,000 yards, but he's also could run the ball. I mean, he's second on the team in rushing behind E.J. Smith, who happens to be Emmitt Smith's son, sophomore running back E.J. Smith, who is, I believe, at around 1,100 yards rushing. So that'll be kind of fun to check out Emmitt's boy on Saturday. I'll be at the game at Kincaid at 4 o'clock on Saturday. Should be a lot of fun. Longview's defense, they've been really good. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. I mean, they've really buckled down this season. And they've kind of had to because they've dealt with a lot of injuries on offense. They've lost a couple of linemen. They've lost a receiver. They've lost their Their starting running back going into the year, Jesse Anderson, he hasn't played since, I believe, the second week of the year. And they've really, and they've gone through transitions at quarterback. They've used 3 different guys before they finally settled on Haynes King as their number one. But the defense has really carried them for the most part this season, and they're going to have to do the same this week against Jesuit because it presents a lot of challenges. They've got a receiver, I believe, who is already almost at 1,500 receiving yards. He's got over 80 catches already, so he's going to be an issue for Longview secondary. I mentioned E.J. Smith. I think that's the key is Longview's going to have to stop the running game first, because if you can kind of – and this is true with any offense. If you can make any offense, no matter how good they are, one-dimensional, you're going to have a better chance to win. And I think if they can slow down the running game, I think Longview can do what they do best on defense, and that's rush the passer. J.C. Blake Morris had a great year. I think he's up to 7 sacks now this year. They put a ton of pressure on the quarterback, really just with 3 guys. They have the three down linemen, and they like to play a lot of coverage. And their secondary is obviously very good for them to be able to do that. And if they can get into obvious passing situations and kind of put some pressure on Jesuit, I think it may only take 1 or 2 stops because, like I said, Jesuit's defense has not been great. 55 points last week against Lakeview Centennial. They gave up over 700 yards themselves in that game, including, I think, 530 rushing yards. And Longview loves to run the ball. So I think Longview's not going to have too much of an issue moving the ball. So if they can just get maybe 1 or 2 stops on defense, that might be enough to win. So I think the key is going to be Longview's defense. And I think they're playing so well right now and with so much confidence that I think it's going to be hard for Jesuit to come away with a win. I just think Longview's playing really well. And interesting note about the site for this game, Kincaid Stadium. Longview has played there numerous times in the playoffs, and they haven't lost there yet. They're 10-0 all time at Kincaid Stadium. I believe dating back to 2004. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. That's on Saturday. Another big game is Lufkin against Richardson Pierce. We kind of alluded to it earlier. You're going to be there Saturday. What are you kind of looking forward to the most out of this one?
Yeah, this one's Saturday in Corsicana. Looking forward to seeing that. Honestly, the Lufkin receiving core that we've been talking about all year. You got Malik Jackson and Jalen Polk, who both have over 500 yards. Both of those guys have been getting some looks at by colleges. You mentioned Kawan Thomas, the quarterback, who's nearing 2,000 yards. I believe he's maybe 8 yards shy of that right now, so he's probably going to pass that mark in this game. Yep. But Richardson Pierce has a defense that's they're not pushovers, but I would say they're kind of average defense. They're giving up 25.7 points per game. So I think that Lufkin's not going to have any issues really scoring either on this team because they've got, in addition to that receiving core that I mentioned, they've got Isaiah Phillips, who's 1,400-yard rusher so far this season.
I was really impressed with him when I saw him the week 1 against Lufkin, and he's kind of lived up to what I saw in that first week of the season. I'm impressed with Phillips. So, yeah, Lufkin has a lot of weapons on offense.
Yeah. He's got over 20 touchdowns as well, so I'm excited to see him. As far as on the other side of the ball, Richardson Pierce got a 1,000-yard rusher themselves in Daquan Landon, who's got 1,250 yards to go with 12 touchdowns this season. So he's going to go up against a Lufkin defense that's allowing 83 yards on the ground per game. So
that's pretty good.
It's a pretty good run defense. They're allowing 3 yards per attempt. So I think that's going to end up being the key in this one is their ability to sort of slow him down, seeing their tough run defense going up against this 1,000-yard rusher. That's definitely going to be the key matchup in this game, and I think whichever team will win that battle has a better chance to come out on top.
And then Friday, you have the first game of the weekend. Friday, It's Van against Kennedale. It's a rematch of last year's state quarterfinals. Same place. It's going to be at the Star in Frisco, noon on Friday. You're going to be there. Kennedale is awfully good. Van's going to have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, Kennedale, they have 1 loss this season. They're winning by an average margin of victory of 43.9 points. So they don't hold back at all, and they've been pretty dominant so far this season. They've got not 1 but 2 1,000-yard rushers this year, and that's really what they like to do is on offense is run the ball. They're averaging 379 yards per game on the ground. those two guys that I mentioned are Jaden Knowles and Deshaun Curvin. And they're both pretty equal, so they pretty much split the carries back there. So fatigue is that will help with fatigue for them. As far as Van goes, every time I talk about them, I can't go without mentioning Garrett Mosley.
It's hard to avoid Garrett Mosley.
Yeah, he's basically their whole offense. Van's averaging 44.3 points per game, and I believe he has like 44 touchdowns combined, passing and rushing. So, and he's also a 1,000-yard rusher as well as a 2,000-yard passer. So, Van goes as Garrett Mosley goes, and if he has a big game, they're going to have a chance to be in this one. If he doesn't, it's probably going to be a blowout. Just no other way to really say it.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to probably play the best game of his career, and it's been a great career. So that kind of tells you how good Kennedale is. And you mentioned the one loss that came to West Orange Stark on a neutral site, and it was a close game. I think they lost by 7. West Orange Stark, of course, 2-time defending state champs. They're undefeated again this year. So Kennedale's loaded. They're really good. Van's going to have their work cut out for them. But who knows? I mean, we've seen players put their teams on their backs before in games like this, and Garrett Mosley is certainly capable.
He's been doing it all season.
Of doing that. So, I mean, it's nothing new for him. So I wouldn't expect anything less than a quality performance from Garrett Mosley. Some other big games, Kilgore against El Campo in 4A Division I. This should be a quick game. Both teams love to run the football. Not a whole lot of passes to go around between these two teams. There's some recent history between these two teams. I think they met 2 years ago in the playoffs. So other big matchup, Henderson and Sealy, also in 4A Division I. I saw Henderson last week against Navasota. They struggled a little bit against the pass until the very end of the game. They gave up 348 passing yards to Navasota. But they really, they're going to have to do a little bit better because Sealy can air it out as well. They've got a passer that's nearing 3,000 yards on the season, so that's going to be key for Henderson to see how much they've improved over 1 week as far as their pass defense goes. Rusk and Melissa, we talked a little bit about this earlier. Rusk, can they keep it going against the Melissa team, which is on a 10-game winning streak? They lost their first game of the year, but they've been rolling ever since. Hugh Springs and Grandview, we talked about that. Grandview is they've been blowing out teams this year. I mean, they have a one-loss team, but Hugh Springs they knocked off the defending champs last week, Mineola. They're playing with a lot of confidence. So could that be enough to carry them through to another win? Mount Vernon against Kemp. Mount Vernon is undefeated. Kemp might be their first real test of the year. Kemp is 10-1 on the season. They're playing really well. This game is kind of getting a lot of statewide buzz. I think it's the DQ Big Game of the Week, which is something that Fox Sports Southwest does on its weekly high school show, and they've chosen this game as their big game of the week. So, that's a big one. And then the last one, Dangerfield against Gunter. Gunter is on a 27-game winning streak. In fact, the last loss came to an East Texas team in the 2015 playoffs, Wascom, which went on to win the state title that year. They're 11-0. They're ranked number 1 in the state. They're defending champs, and they play Dangerfield this week. Dangerfield has the pedigree. They're no stranger to state championship success. They've won 6 state titles, which is the most in East Texas history. But they're going to have to beat a really good Gunter team to advance, and they're obviously the underdogs this week. So that's kind of an overview of some of the big games going on this week. Before we get out of here, we want to give a special shout-out to our players of the week on offense. We mentioned him earlier, Jefferson running back Tybo Williams. How about this? 9 carries, 287 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's 32 yards per carry.
I was about to ask.
32 yards per carry in a 69-30 win over Farmersville. We mentioned that Trey Hodge and TQ Jackson usually light the fuse for that offense, but not last week. Tybo Williams was all they needed. So congratulations to him, our offensive player of the week, and on defense.
Yeah, we have Gerald Turner from Carlisle. I was there to see that game firsthand on Saturday. 4 interceptions against Groveton, and that's no small feat because Groveton has one of the better quarterbacks in East Texas, one of the better receivers in East Texas, and Saul Chavez, he's the leading receiver.
Yep.
So, I mean, I believe Turner was guarding him because after that game, he told me he was not looking forward to that matchup going in, but he did pretty well. He had 4 interceptions and he returned 1 for a touchdown. So congrats to him.
Yeah, keep your head up, Gerald. You can play this game. Four picks against Chavez. I mean, good on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, Hey, never doubt yourself, especially this time of the year. So congratulations, our offensive and defensive players of the week, Tybo Williams of Jefferson and Gerald Turner of Carlisle. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week's podcast. Be sure to follow myself and Chandler on Twitter. I'm at Clint Buckley. He's at Chandler Vessels. And also you can follow us on the main account at ETSN.fm. And if you haven't done so already, download the ETSN mobile app right now. It's available at the App Store or on Google Play. It's the best way to keep up with everything that's happening in East Texas. Well, we hope everyone has safe travels this holiday weekend. For Chandler Vessels, this is Clint Buckley wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving.